Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Titleless Musings, and today we are doing a new reading video. We are on my digital journal. If you've missed any of the recent videos about reading on my channel and about books, you would have missed that I have a digital journal where I do all of my reading recaps because it would be so expensive getting through paper and ink and all that to do it on my physical journal. So I've built it. I've spoken about this app before. It's Noteful, not sponsored. It's just what I use. And today we are going to be creating monthly recaps for the first quarter of 2026. So at the end of every year, I'll do like a book recap, and sometimes I forget like characters and quotes and stuff, even if I remember the books that I liked. So I thought at the end of each month, I would go through, I would pick a favorite and a least favorite book, a favorite quote, favorite character or characters, a biggest surprise book, whether that was a good surprise or a bad surprise, and then 3 notable mentions. So while I set up this spread and you watch me kind of create that, I thought I would talk about the books that I'm featuring in today's video. So we'll start with January, obviously. I had a really good reading month in January. It was actually one of my best yet. I think I read like 20 books, which was huge, and it was good because my reading has dropped off. But my favorite book in January was Is This a Cry for Help by Emily Austen. And I had a hard time deciding. I had a lot of really good reads in January, but with Is This a Cry for Help, I actually went out and immediately bought another Emily Austen book, which I never do. I usually keep very strict rules for myself about buying books. So the fact that I did that, the fact that I liked it enough to do that, I'm counting that as my favorite. That basically follows a librarian who's come back to work after a mental health leave due to her ex dying. And it talks a lot about like the era of censorship in libraries. It was so good. So good. Then for my least favorite book, we have a bit of a surprise. My least favorite book was The Compound by, I believe it's pronounced Eiling Roll. I apologize if I got that wrong. I have recently fallen down the rabbit hole of weird girl literature. It's a subreddit that kind of turned me onto that genre of like unhinged female protagonists and feminist thrillers and things like that. And this is one that gets recommended there quite a lot, but I didn't enjoy it at all. I think I gave it like a 1.5 star. It wasn't super highly rated for me. This is basically, like, it's meant to be a Love Island, but like if we lived in I was gonna say if we lived in a ruined world, we do. But it's basically like Love Island theme, like a show where people watch as these people live in these compounds and they have to do tasks to get brand deals. And it sounded so good, and for me it really let me down. I really didn't like the writing at all, so that was bumped to my least favorite book. For my favorite quote, I chose a quote from Departures by Julian Barnes. I have never read a Julian Barnes novel before, but I read Departures because I saw it and I was like, oh, it's a little... I rented it as an audiobook. I thought it would be a fun read. It was really good, actually. It was one of my first 5 stars of the year. I was surprised by how impactful it was, but the quote I picked was, incurable yet manageable. That sounds like life, doesn't it? Though there are inevitably some dreamers who attempt to evade this existential equation, they tend to be the ultra-rich who also indulge in space travel and paranoid fantasies. For them, the way out of death's trap is to be found in extending the human life, reversing the process of aging, and transporting us to some planet where our breathing will be slowed and we shall live for much, much longer. In the meantime, we trash the only planet we have and make life unlivable for future generations. And again, that's a quote from Departures by Julian Barnes, and I love that quote. Absolutely love it. I'm a huge believer of the fact that reading is always political. I like books that make a statement, and that was just one that really stuck with me. Then for favorite characters in January, I actually awarded it to a book that I loved, and that was The Future Saints by Ashley Winstead. This was a contender for my top 5 books of January, because I kind of put like a top 5 list together and then picked from that. This was definitely up there. It was a 5-star read for me. My favorite character in that was Hannah. The Future Saints, I think it's meant to be like Daisy Jones and the Six, but I haven't read that yet, although it was giving like Taylor Jenkins Reid vibes. It follows like this band, and they're supposed to kind of be on like their final tour when the manager of the record company basically comes in and tries to get them to make more records. It's a really good book. I do want to give a trigger warning that it does talk about things like drug abuse and things like that, addiction. But it was so good. The ending is still one of the most powerful that I've read all year. So I definitely recommend The Future Saints. And then my biggest surprise, I'm going to preface this. My January biggest surprise was a bad surprise. It was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I finally finished reading the ACOTAR up to this point, and I didn't like the last book. To be fair, I said this last year. I read Frost and Starlight at Christmas, and I hated it, dude. I should have stopped at Wings and Ruin. I think that should have just been what I did, but I didn't because I'm stubborn, so I pushed through. I didn't like it at all. I won't spoil anything because I know a lot of people are still reading it for the first time, but I will say that for me, I think that the series is overhyped. I think that Wings and Ruin was the best book. That was my favorite. But I just don't think it's worthy of all the attention it gets. So that was my biggest surprise. And then for my 3 notable mentions, first of all was Never Greener by Ruth Jones. Complete random one I stumbled upon, but really liked it. It's like women's fic. It really, really good. Really, really, really good. I can't spoil too much about it. All I'll say basically is it's affair partners, except they meet later in life, and it's very interesting because it doesn't go the way that I think a lot of those books go. Really, really good. My second notable mention for January was The Star Society. This is a new release, I believe. This follows sisters separated by World War II, and it was a 4-star read for me. It was actually better than I thought it was going to be, but it's not one that I think about a lot, if that makes sense. It's a notable mention because the first read-through is stunning. It really kind of held my attention while I was reading it, but I don't think about it a lot afterwards. And then that's also somewhat similar with Meet the Newmans, which also came out this year. That one follows like a TV show and kind of the lives behind that. That's another really good one. With Meet the Newmans, though, that was one where I kind of wish it had gone a little bit further, if that made sense. I kind of wish there had been more at stake, if that makes sense. So that's my January recap, which is good because we're about to start making that recap here soon. So I will now move on to the books I chose for February. So my February favorite book was Women of a Promiscuous Nature by Donna Everhart. This is shaping up to be one of the books of the decade for me. I absolutely loved this book. It basically follows, was it called the America Act, I think it was called? It was in World War I and through to World War II, where women that were seen as promiscuous, whether that was because they were lesbians, or whether that was because they lived alone, or they were seen flirting with soldiers, women that they would deem promiscuous, they would go and have these quote-unquote, like STD examinations done on, and they would then lock them away in a group home until they, quote-unquote, got better. I had never heard of this happening. It was a phenomenal book. It's a hard read. I think it's a very important read. I've studied a lot of feminist theory, and I've never heard of this, and I think that's why it's so important that we read books like this. But it was so well written. I think about it literally all the time. It is multi-POV. I will say that adds to the story. If you are usually hesitant about multi-POV, I think that this is a pretty good one. The characters are very distinct, and it's important because you follow, obviously, a couple of women that live at the home, but you also follow the warden. So, it's so good. Definitely recommend Women of a Promiscuous Nature. My least favorite book was The Pact by Lisa Walker. I still can't tell you what happened in this book. It's basically like these college students, or these former college students, they go on a pilgrimage. I'm reciting this, by the way, just off the top of my head. I apologize if I'm all over the place. But these former college students, they go on a pilgrimage because it was like related to a teacher that had died, and like it turns out that there was like some kind of involvement with that. I can't, again, that's one where it's like, it's very spoilery, so if you're gonna read it, I would recommend going in blind, but I also would recommend not reading it, because it was really boring. I still, like I said, I don't understand what the point was. I will admit the twist got me. I wasn't expecting it, but I was also so bored out of my mind that I probably missed it. So, there's that. My favorite quote was actually from a book I didn't really like, which was Everything You Ever Wanted. This is also one of those weird girl ones. It is like people that went, they lived on a different planet, and it was done as part of like this reality show. But it was another one where the ending completely ruined it for me. It was like they took forever to get to the planet, and then once we were there, it was very monotonous, and then the ending was a total waste of time. I hated it. My favorite quote from that was, quote, "Everywhere around the country, other people were enjoying this natural spectacle, the appearance and disappearance of our star, the birth and the death of each day. Somehow, after thousands of years of human advancement, this everyday occurrence was still the loveliest thing on the planet." So I loved that quote, but I don't necessarily think I could recommend the book, Everything You Ever Wanted. If you're looking for something with a similar vibe, this is where I would recommend I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, which I think is the better book. Favorite characters, we all knew what this was going to be. It's Miles Devereaux from The Lady Knows Best, which is the first book in the Goods Guide to Misconduct series. I love Miles Devereaux. Okay, you can pry Miles Devereaux out of my cold dead hands, and that's all I'm going to say. And then my biggest surprise was a phenomenal read, and that was Superfan by Jenny Tingwei Zhang. This follows, it's basically about K-pop idols and people, and specifically women, but that look up to K-pop idols and things like that, except it goes into the kind of territory of like stalkers and these different quote-unquote fans that will like stalk them at the airports and all this stuff. I didn't know if I was going to like this one, to be fair, especially given that I'm a K-pop fan, but I absolutely loved it. One of the best books I've read this year. I will be buying it if I see it in store. So again, that was Superfan. Highly recommend. And then my notable mentions. So the first for February was And Now Back to You, which is the second book in the Heartstrings series by B.K. Borison. The day actually that I got my copy, I had heard from people that it was really disappointing. And if you liked First Time Caller, you weren't going to like this second book, which was And Now Back to You. For me, that was not the case. I actually gave And Now Back to You a perfect 5-star, as opposed to First Time Caller. I think I gave a 4. It was so beautiful. It was so good. I love Delilah and Jackson so much. It was really cute. It was cheesy, but I specifically liked the attention to like Jackson's family background. I thought it was really good. I really liked it a lot. My second notable mention was The Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. She is one of my auto-buy authors. I read The Stationery Shop years ago now, and it's still a book I think about to this day. So to have The Lion Women of Tehran also hit that same way was phenomenal. The friendship is probably one of my favorites that I've ever read. I really just admire the way that she writes. And this is another one that's like takes place over multiple years, so you kind of jump back and forth in time. But I think Kamali just really nails that. It's never confusing. I always find it, easy to follow. But it's also it's very powerful what she does, specifically with like the kids of the women. So loved that. And then my final notable mention for February was Everyday Movement. I spoke about this in my last reading video, so I'm not going to go too into depth here, but it's about the protests in Hong Kong, and this is another one where I am going to put my reading as political hat on and recommend this. I think it's very important to read now. It's very beautifully written, and this is one of those books that you sit back when you watch the news and you think about it. Because, when I read this, obviously back in February, the U.S. is kind of in a place right now. So I really liked Everyday Movement. I think it's an important read, and it's one that I don't really see talked about a lot. So moving to March, which is obviously the last of the first quarter recaps, my favorite book was Where the Girls Were by Kate Schatz. This book was really, really good. I think my niche category of the year is books about women's group homes. This is another new release, and it follows basically a pregnant teenager. She's sent out to this group home, and it's basically where all these pregnant kind of unwanted women, whether that's pregnant teenagers or pregnant homeless women, they get sent to these homes, and it talks a lot about the kind of life within those. Again, based on actual real things. It talks about like the escape, and this is another one where I have to be very careful what I say about the ending because it will spoil what happens, but I will just say that it's an ending that really made me think. I think if you like kind of classic feminist tales, so like Handmaid's Tale immediately comes to mind. If that's kind of your jam, you will like this ending. I liked getting to see the kind of range of opinions and emotions. I like the fact that we explored those different things. I think a lot of times authors tend to kind of stray a little bit back from making statements. This book didn't. This book said some pretty harsh things, but it also showed both sides of the coin, if that makes sense. Both women who wanted to be pregnant and women who didn't. It was really, really good. So then we move to a least favorite book, which is actually a DNF, and that is YN by Esther Yee. I loved Superfan, like I said, so I went and asked for recommendations, and this was one of them, like I said, YN by Esther Yee. And I got about as far as hearing somebody else's cuticles getting bitten off, and then I had to stop, because that was genuinely one of the worst things I've ever laid eyes on. This is another one that was kind of about boy groups, except it's just not good. It doesn't get a good Goodreads rating either, to be fair, but I have a tendency of liking books that are more kind of lit fic focused and weird girl aesthetic. But this was just, it was bizarre. It was like visceral and violent without a real purpose. It was just doing it for shock value, I felt. So I DNF'd. I didn't finish it, and I don't recommend it, to be honest. Favorite quote. I picked a quote from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I am finally getting around to reading. And my quote for the month was, "Another thing that got forgotten was the fact that against all probability, a sperm whale had suddenly been called into existence several miles above the surface of an alien planet. And since this is not a naturally tenable position for a whale, this poor innocent creature had very little time to come to terms with its identity as a whale before it then had to come to terms with not being a whale anymore." Love that quote. Loved it. It wasn't like a 5-star read for me, Hitchhiker's Guide, but I'm glad I read it. I do want to finish the series, and I'm so glad that I finally understand So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. Then favorite characters, we moved to another series that I started, which is the Heated Rivalry Game Changer series. So my favorite character was actually from Game Changer, and it was Kip. I love Kip. I would lay my life on the line for Kip. He is such a sweetheart. At time of filming, I actually just finished Heated Rivalry. I think I prefer Game Changer more, but they're very close. I gave Game Changer a 4-star. There were just a few things I didn't like that just weren't for me. There was a lot of kind of smut scenes and spicy scenes, which I don't have an issue with. It's just not my personal preference. I don't read books that contain a lot of smut. So for me, that was going to be a deal breaker no matter what book I read, but the romance is really good. I do really, really like it. And then my biggest surprise, this actually is a surprise. Like, I'm sitting here reading it, I'm like, wow, that is a surprise. The biggest surprise was To Cage a Wild Bird by Brooke Fast. This is I think it's billed as a romantasy, but it's more sci-fi. It's very Hunger Games, which is why I put it on a surprise. I loved Hunger Games when I was younger, and this book feels exactly like Hunger Games. It basically takes place in this prison where citizens of Enlock can go and, end the prisoners, for lack of a better word, in hunts. And it's like, it examines things like capitalism, and I was so upset by the ending because the next book isn't coming out until February 2027. But I do recommend it. It was really good, especially if you like Hunger Games. That would be one you might want to pick up. So then my notable mentions for March. So first of all, My Dark Vanessa. This is another one I finally got around to reading. This book is one that I'm going to have to sit with for a while. I finished reading it about a week ago, and I still haven't really been able to kind of process it. It's really, really good, but it's very, very dark. I do not encourage you to pick this one up if you're in a dark place. I have never been made to feel physically nauseous from a book before, but this made me feel incredibly sick. It's a great read. It's just not one that I think I would ever reread because it was very hard to read. I have to be careful with this one, with what I say on YouTube, but I highly recommend you to check the trigger warnings. If you are sensitive to anything regarding children with older adults, do not check this one out, because it is very graphic and it is a very hard read. My second book is a little bit lighter. It's Paper Cut by Rachel Taff. This follows a woman that escaped like a cult commune, and she's written a book about it, but part of what she has to do on this book tour, she's like trying to get the anniversary edition out, is she has to go back to those places that she lived as part of the cult. Again, it's a thriller, so I have to be careful what I say. I think if you like shows like Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and, like, I used to watch Escaping Polygamy on TLC. If you like things like that, you'll probably like Paper Cut. And then my final notable mention, as you can see, is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This is another one I wasn't expecting to enjoy as much as I did, especially because I did not at all. I hated Akhtar, but Powerless was pretty good. I actually did enjoy it. I haven't read the second book yet, but I will be picking that up soon. But that brings us to the end of this monthly recap. I plan on doing this once a quarter, and obviously at the end of the year I'll do a bigger in-depth review. But I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do remember to leave a like and subscribe, as it really does help the channel. Let me know in the comments, what have you been reading, what have you liked, what have you not liked. I'm always looking for book cracks. My TBR is endless. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.